My name is Alex Chen. I'm 30 years old, and the last time I saw my father in person, he looked me dead in the eyes and said, "You've always been a disappointment. Your brother actually makes us proud." That was at my cousin's wedding, 6 months ago. Last Tuesday, that same man sent me a text, "Need to talk urgently. Call me." When I called back, stupidly, against my better judgment, he didn't apologize, didn't acknowledge what he'd said, just asked, in that voice that expected compliance, if I could help the family out with $50,000, as if the past 30 years of being the family failure meant I owed him a down payment on a house, as if I hadn't spent my entire life trying to earn a fraction of the respect he gave my brother for free. I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to that wedding, to the moment everything crystallized into absolute clarity, because you need to understand who my father is, who I've been to him, to understand why his request for $50,000 didn't just insult me, it broke something that can never be repaired. I grew up in San Jose as the second son in a traditional Chinese-American family. My older brother, Marcus, was everything my parents wanted. Pre-med at Stanford, perfect SAT scores, athletic, charismatic, the kind of kid who made parents beam with pride at dinner parties. And then there was me, the kid who liked art and computers, who wanted to study design instead of medicine or law, who asked too many questions and didn't fit the mold. My father, Richard Chen, was a civil engineer who'd immigrated from Taiwan in his 20s and built a comfortable life through relentless work and rigid discipline. He had specific ideas about success: doctor, lawyer, engineer. Anything else was frivolous, a waste. When I told him at 17 that I wanted to study UX design, he laughed. Not a kind laugh, a dismissive one. "Design," he'd said, "that's not a career. That's a hobby. You want to draw pictures for a living? Grow up, Alex." I went to community college because my parents wouldn't pay for university if I wasn't studying something practical. Worked part-time at Best Buy, saved money, transferred to San Jose State for a computer science degree that I hated, but that satisfied my father's minimum requirements. Taught myself design on the side, took online courses, built a portfolio while my classmates were at parties. Marcus went to med school. My parents threw a celebration dinner, invited all their friends. When I got my first job as a junior designer at a small startup making $52,000 a year, which felt like a fortune after years of retail work, my father's only comment was, "Marcus makes more than that in his residency, and he's actually helping people." I'm not telling you this for sympathy. I'm telling you so you understand the pattern. Everything I did was measured against Marcus and found wanting. Every achievement was diminished, every milestone ignored. When Marcus got engaged, my parents bought the couple a $15,000 down payment gift for their condo. When I moved out of my cramped studio into a one-bedroom I could finally afford, my mother asked why I was wasting money on extra space. The thing is, I didn't hate my brother. Marcus was actually a decent guy who tried, in his awkward way, to bridge the gap, but he'd been handed approval his whole life and didn't understand what it was like to beg for scraps of it. When I tried to explain how our father made me feel, he'd say things like, "Dad's just old school, he doesn't mean it." But he did mean it, every word. Fast forward to 6 months ago, my cousin Jessica's wedding in Napa Valley, big, expensive affair. I'd been debating whether to go. Seeing my extended family always meant enduring questions about when I'd get serious about my career while Marcus fielded congratulations on his dermatology practice. But I went, because despite everything, some part of me still wanted to belong. I was standing by the bar during cocktail hour when my father approached. He'd had a few drinks, his face was flushed, and he was talking to his brother, my Uncle David, who'd always been kinder to me.
"Richard," Uncle David was saying, "you should be proud. I saw Alex's company in TechCrunch. That design platform he works on is really taking off." My father waved his hand dismissively. "It's not real work, playing with colors and buttons. Marcus is saving lives. That's real contribution."
I felt something in my chest go tight. Uncle David noticed me standing there. His eyes widened. "Alex, it's fine," I said automatically, the response trained into me from childhood. "It's fine. Don't make waves. Don't cause problems." But my father turned, saw me, and instead of apologizing or showing even a moment of embarrassment, he doubled down. "It's true. You've always been a disappointment, Alex. Your brother actually makes us proud. When are you going to stop playing around and do something meaningful with your life?" The wedding reception buzzed around us. Music played, people laughed, and my father looked at me with complete sincerity, believing every word he'd said, believing that my work, my success, my entire life was meaningless because it wasn't medicine or law. Uncle David stepped between us. "Richard, that's enough. You've had too much to drink." My father scoffed. "I'm just being honest. Alex knows I'm right. He's always known." I didn't respond, didn't argue, just set down my drink, walked to my car, and drove back to San Francisco. 3 hours of highway with my father's words playing on loop in my head. "You've always been a disappointment." The next morning, I woke up and made a decision. A quiet, solid decision that would change everything. I was done. Done trying to earn approval I'd never receive. Done letting him define my worth. Done with all of it. I blocked my father's number. Blocked my mother's too, since she'd never once defended me against him. Left the family group chat, unfollowed them on social media, then opened my laptop and started looking at the numbers. Here's what my father didn't know: that playing around with design, I was the lead product designer at a Series B startup that had just been acquired by a major tech company. My salary was $165,000 a year. I had stock options worth approximately $340,000 that were vesting over the next 2 years. I owned a condo in San Francisco, small but mine, with a view of the bay. I had $95,000 in savings and investments. I was 30 years old and more financially stable than my father had been at 40, and he had no idea, because he'd never asked, never cared, just assumed that because I wasn't a doctor, I must be struggling. I made a spreadsheet. Every time I'd helped family over the years, the $1,500 I'd lent Marcus when he needed money between semesters, never paid back. The $800 I'd given my mother for emergency car repairs that I later learned went to my cousin's baby shower gift. The $2,000 I'd contributed to my grandmother's 80th birthday party that my father organized. The countless dinners I'd paid for when visiting because you can afford it and your mother and I are on fixed income. They weren't. My father had a consulting business on the side. Total, over 5 years, $18,750. Not a fortune, but substantial, especially since none of it had come with a thank you, just expectations of more. I looked at that number for a long time, then closed the spreadsheet and did something I should have done years ago. I focused on my own life. The startup acquisition went through. My stock options vested ahead of schedule due to the acquisition terms. Within 3 months, I was suddenly sitting on a bank account that looked surreal. After taxes and financial advisor fees, I had $487,000, nearly $500,000, at 30 years old. I didn't tell my family. Why would I? They'd made it clear what they thought of my career. Instead, I put 60% into index funds and safer investments, used 20% to pay off my condo, and kept 20% liquid for opportunities. One of those opportunities was a close friend's startup. My friend Jordan was building an AI-powered design tool, and he needed early investors. I wrote a check for $50,000 without hesitation.
not because I expected returns, though the company was already showing promise, but because Jordan had always believed in me, had celebrated my wins, had been more family than my blood relatives.
That's $50,000 investment? 6 months later, it was worth $125,000 on paper. The company was growing fast. All of this happened in silence. My family had no idea. I ignored my mother's occasional texts asking when I'd visit, ignored Marcus's attempts to clear the air without actually addressing what our father had said. Just removed myself. And you know what? I felt lighter than I had in years. Then came the text. Tuesday, 9:47 a.m. Unknown number, but I recognized it as my father's because I'd memorized it before blocking it. Need to talk urgently. Call me. I almost deleted it, should have, but curiosity won. Or maybe some sick part of me wanted to know what could possibly be urgent enough to break 6 months of silence. I called from my work phone during lunch. Alex? His voice was the same. Authoritative, expecting obedience. Took you long enough. What do you want, Dad? I need to discuss something important with you. A family matter. I'm not part of the family. You made that clear at Jessica's wedding. A pause. Don't be dramatic. I was drunk. I didn't mean it. He didn't apologize, just dismissed it. I didn't mean it. As if that erased the words. What do you want? I repeated. My mother and I are buying a house, downsizing from the current place. We found a perfect property in Los Gatos, but we're short on the down payment. I need you to help us out with $50,000. I almost laughed. You want $50,000? It's not want, it's family obligation. Your mother and I raised you, paid for your education. You paid for 2 years of community college. I paid for everything else. Don't be pedantic. Family helps family. Marcus is already contributing $30,000. Your Uncle David is helping with closing costs. We just need you to step up too. Step up. The words tasted bitter. You called me a disappointment 6 months ago, told me my work was meaningless, and now you want me to give you $50,000? I apologized for that. No, you didn't. You said you didn't mean it. That's not an apology. His voice hardened. Alex, my mother and I are getting older. We need to move to a place that's more manageable. This house is perfect. Better neighborhood, closer to Marcus, good investment. But we need help. Are you really going to let your pride get in the way of family? How much do you think I make, Dad? What? You've never asked about my career, never cared what I do. So I'm curious, when you ask for $50,000, how much do you assume I earn? Silence. Then, maybe 70, 80,000? That's not the point. I make $165,000 a year, plus stock options and bonuses. I own my condo outright. I have significant investments. I'm probably more financially stable than you've ever been. More silence. I could hear him processing this. Well then, you can certainly afford to help your parents. And there it was. Not surprise at my success, not pride, not even curiosity about how I'd achieved it, just the immediate pivot to what he could extract from it. No, I said. Excuse me? No, I'm not giving you $50,000. I'm not giving you anything. You spent my entire life telling me I was a failure, that my work didn't matter, that Marcus was the successful one. You don't get to change your tune now that you need money. You're being childish. I'm being an adult. Adults set boundaries. Here's mine. Don't contact me again. We're done. Alex! I hung up. My hands were shaking. I'd never spoken to my father like that. Never said no so completely. It felt terrifying and liberating in equal measure. The aftermath was immediate and ugly. My phone, my work phone since he didn't have my personal cell anymore, started ringing within minutes. My mother, Marcus, Uncle David, cousins I barely spoke to,
all of them calling to tell me I was making a mistake, that I needed to reconsider, that family was important. I let them all go to voicemail. Then I listened to the messages. My mother crying, "Alex, how can you do this to us? We're your parents. We need this house. How can you be so selfish?" Marcus, frustrated, "Dude, seriously? It's 50 grand. You can afford it. Just help them out and stop making this a thing." Uncle David, disappointed, "Alex, I know your father said something hurtful, but this is about your mother too. Don't punish her for his mistakes." Various cousins and family friends, "Your parents are so upset. Can you really live with yourself knowing you could help and chose not to?" I deleted them all. Then I drafted a single email and sent it to my mother, Marcus, and Uncle David, the only 3 people whose opinions I remotely cared about. I'm not refusing to help because I can't afford it. I'm refusing because for 30 years, my father has made it clear that he doesn't respect me, my career, or my choices. He's called me a disappointment to my face. He's compared me to Marcus at every opportunity. He's never celebrated my successes or acknowledged my accomplishments. And now, when he needs money, suddenly I'm supposed to step up for family? No, I don't owe him financial support. I don't owe him anything. This isn't about the money. It's about dignity. I won't be treated like a failure for decades and then be expected to write a check when it's convenient. If any of you can't understand that, then maybe we don't have the relationship I thought we did. I hit send and closed my laptop. The next week was chaos. My mother switched from crying to anger. She called my work directly, demanding to speak to me. My assistant, bless her, told her I was unavailable and took messages I never returned. She showed up at my building. I watched her through the door camera, similar to what happened with my ex's family, but I didn't let her up. She stood in the lobby for 30 minutes before leaving. Marcus tried a different approach, showed up at a coffee shop near my office where I often worked, sat down across from me like we were having a casual chat. "Alex, we need to talk about this." "No, we don't." "Yes, we do. You're tearing the family apart." I looked up from my laptop. "I'm not doing anything. I said no to a request, that's all. A request from our parents who raised us. They raised you. They tolerated me while making sure I knew I was never good enough. That's not fair. Dad's hard on everyone." "No, Marcus, he's hard on me. He's proud of you. There's a difference." "So you're going to punish them financially? Make them lose this house?" "They're not losing anything. They're choosing not to buy a house they can't afford. That's different. You could make this easy." "I could, but why should I? What have they done to earn that from me?"
Marcus ran his hand through his hair, frustrated. "Look, I get it. Dad said something shitty, but that's just how he is. You're taking it too personally." Taking it personally? I felt something cold settle in my chest. "Marcus, he's called me a disappointment my entire life. Not once, my entire life. He's never come to anything I cared about, never asked about my work, never celebrated my wins. And you want me to just, what? Get over it? Write a check and pretend 30 years didn't happen? I want you to be the bigger person." "Why? Why do I have to be the bigger person? Why can't he be? Why can't he apologize? Why can't he acknowledge what he said and how he's treated me?" "Because he's Dad. He's not going to change." "Then he'll have to buy a different house." Marcus left without his coffee. I stayed and worked for another 3 hours, feeling both guilty and justified in ways I couldn't untangle. What my family didn't know, the whole situation had already cost them more than $50,000 because I'd planned to do something generous, something I'd thought about for months. My maternal grandmother, Popo, was the one person in my family who'd always been kind, who'd never compared me to Marcus, who'd celebrated my art projects when I was a kid, who'd asked about my design work with genuine interest, and who told me she was proud of me.
She was 87 and living in a care facility that my parents complained about affording. I'd been planning to set up a fund, $100,000 invested to generate dividends that would cover her care costs indefinitely. I talked to a financial advisor about it, had the paperwork ready. But after my father's request and the family's response, I paused. Not out of spite, out of strategic thinking. If I set up the fund now, they'd see it as weakness, as proof that they could bully me into compliance. So I waited. And then, 2 weeks after the blow-up, Popo called me herself from a borrowed phone at the facility. "Bow Bow," she said, using the childhood nickname that meant treasure. "What's this I hear about you and your father?" I told her everything. The wedding, the request, the family pressure, all of it. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Then, "Your father is stubborn, like his father. They think showing love means pushing you to be better, but they don't understand. You can't push someone who's already flying." "I'm not flying, Popo." "Yes, you are. You always have been. You just needed people to look up instead of down." We talked for an hour. At the end, I told her about the fund, about how I wanted to help her but couldn't let my parents think they could manipulate me. "Set up the fund," she said, "but don't tell them. Tell the facility to keep it quiet. Let me have the comfort and you have the peace, and let your father sit with his choices." So I did. $100,000 into a managed trust fund that would generate approximately $4,000 annually, enough to cover her care facility costs with some left over for comforts. I worked with a lawyer to ensure my parents couldn't access it or even know about it.
The facility would simply stop billing my father for her care. He'd assume it was some insurance or Medicare thing. Popo cried when I told her it was done. "You're a good boy, Alex. Better than your father deserves." Meanwhile, the house situation imploded exactly as predictably as I'd expected. Without my $50,000, my parents couldn't make the down payment. They tried to get a larger mortgage but didn't qualify. My father's consulting income wasn't steady enough, and they already had debt. They tried to get other family members to contribute more, but most had already stretched their budgets. The property went to someone else, a cash buyer who closed fast. My mother called me crying. "Are you happy now? We lost our dream home because you were selfish." "No, Mom. You lost it because you couldn't afford it. That's not my fault. We could have afforded it with your help. Then it wasn't affordable." She hung up on me. My father sent an email. Subject line, "Disappointment." In it, he wrote, "I always knew you were selfish, but I didn't think you'd actually hurt your own mother. She's devastated. I hope you can live with yourself. You've proven that your pride matters more than family. I raised you better than this, but clearly I failed." I stared at that email for a long time, at the word disappointment in the subject line, at the phrase, "I raised you better than this," at the final twist of the knife. I failed. He'd made my refusal to fund his house about his failure as a parent, had managed, even in his anger, to center himself as the victim. I wrote back, one line, "You called me a disappointment before you needed money. At least now I know where I actually stand." Then I blocked his email. 3 months passed. Radio silence from my parents. Marcus sent occasional texts I didn't answer. Cousins who'd called me selfish stopped reaching out. The family had collectively decided I was in the wrong and iced me out accordingly. And honestly, I was fine. Better than fine. I was thriving. I got another promotion at work. My title was now Principal Product Designer, with a salary of $195,000 plus bonuses. Jordan's startup, the one I'd invested in, got Series A funding. My $50,000 was now worth $200,000 on paper. I was dating someone kind who actually asked about my day and celebrated my wins.
I'd started therapy to process the family stuff. I joined a gym and got into rock climbing. I traveled to Japan for 2 weeks, something I'd always wanted to do but put off because family gatherings always came first. My life, without my family in it, was genuinely good. Then Uncle David called, not to pressure me, just to talk. "Alex, I need to tell you something. Your father's been struggling."
That's not my problem. I know, and I'm not asking you to fix it. I just thought you should know. The consulting business isn't doing well. Your mother's worried about money, and he's too proud to admit he made a mistake with the house thing. They ended up staying in their current place, but the maintenance is expensive. He's stressed. He's been stressed my whole life. It's never made him treat me better. You're right. You're absolutely right. And Alex, I owe you an apology. I should have said something at the wedding. When he called you a disappointment, I should have stood up for you. I didn't, and I'm sorry. That apology, from someone who'd actually witnessed the moment, meant something. Thank you, I said quietly. He won't apologize. You know that, right? He'll never admit he was wrong. I know. So what happens now? Now? Nothing. I have a good life. I'm successful, happy, building something that matters. He doesn't get to be part of that, not unless he earns it, and I don't think he will. That's probably true. I'm sorry, Alex. You deserved better. Yeah, I did. After we hung up, I sat on my balcony and watched the San Francisco fog roll in. My father would probably never change, would probably die thinking I was the selfish one, and I'd made peace with that, because his opinion of me no longer defined my worth. 6 months after the $50,000 request, I'm sitting in my newly renovated home office, looking at my investment portfolio. That initial $50,000 in Jordan's startup is now worth $285,000. The company just got acquired. I'm getting a payout that will push my net worth over $1 million at age 30. My father has no idea. Neither does my mother. Marcus probably doesn't either. They think I'm still playing with colors and buttons, wasting my life on meaningless work. And I'm fine with that. More than fine. Because I've learned something crucial. You can't earn respect from people who've decided you're not worth respecting. You can't prove your value to people who've invested in your worthlessness. You can only remove yourself from the equation and build a life they can't diminish. Last week, I got a voicemail from my mother. Her voice was small, tired. "Alex, it's Mom. I know you probably won't call back, but I wanted to say I miss you. Not because of the money, just you. I know your father was wrong. I know I should have stood up for you. I didn't, and I'm sorry. I understand if you can't forgive that, but I miss my son." I saved the voicemail. Didn't delete it either. Didn't respond either. Maybe someday I will. Maybe when she's ready to actually acknowledge what happened, not just miss what she lost. But for now, I'm focusing on the family I'm building, the one made of friends who celebrate me, partners who respect me, and most importantly, the relationship I have with myself. My dad called me a failure, then asked for $50,000. I said no, and that decision, that one word, freed me in ways I'm still discovering. Some bridges need to burn before you can see the path forward clearly.